All right, so today our objective is that you're going to be able to solve a multi-step inequality. So the step that goes along with that we should already know, but if not, we will review, is when and if to flip the inequality symbol as well as to graph your solution. And then this third one here is also something we've gone over, but we will be testing solutions for specifically these multi-step inequalities. So if you haven't already, just as every time we do this reminder, these guided notes are on Schoology if you want to go ahead and print them. If you do not have that capability, that is perfectly okay. Just make sure you take notes with me as I go through the lesson, and then submit a picture of your notes. All right, so today we are going to talk about multi-step inequalities. So remember, you must flip the inequality symbol if you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number. And then other than that, it is the same process of solving a multi-step equation. And I'm going to go ahead and go through that with you. So step one, we know is to simplify. Simplify, which means distribute and combine like terms. After you've done that, you can go ahead, and if it is not already, you're going to simplify by distributing and combining like terms, and then you're going to ensure that your variables are on the same side. If not, you're going to move the variables to the same side. After you have done that, you really will have a two-step or a one-step inequality, which then you do your order of operations backwards. All right, so then our first step. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this first one for you. So our first step, just like we talked about, same as a multi-step equation, is to go ahead and distribute this 3. So 3 times the x is going to give us 3x minus 3 times the 4 is 12. My pen turned off for a second there. All right, 3x, so 3 times the 4 gave us 12, so 3x minus 12 is greater than negative 18, and now we have a two-step equation. So we know we have to do that order of operations backwards. So parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. All right, so we want to get started at the bottom and work our way up. It's just like when you put your shoes on. When you put your shoes on, you put on your sock and then your shoe. But when you take them off, you can't take your sock off before your shoe. You have to take your shoe off and then your sock. It's the same kind of idea. In order to undo the order of operations, we have to work backwards. So we're going to get rid of addition and subtraction before multiplication and division. So to get rid of subtraction, we're going to use addition because that's our inverse. Then we have 3x is greater than, because we didn't multiply or divide by a negative, 18 plus 12, negative 18 plus 12, so I have a positive and a negative. We know with addition of a positive and a negative, we're going to subtract and keep the bigger sign, so 18 minus 12 is 6, and 18 is bigger, so it's a negative 6. I'm going to go ahead and put a star right here. So one of the things, and I tried to say it to make sure that it didn't happen before it did, because this is one of the issues I see a lot. So we know we get rid of multiplication with division. So we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3. So we're going to bring down our x, and negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. This inequality symbol here stays the same. And I start it because of this. I want you to write that you only flip if the number, this number right here, multiplied or divided on both sides is negative. So one of the things I saw is a lot of you on your homework went ahead and tried to flip your inequality because the 6 here was negative. You are only flipping that inequality at the sign of the number being multiplied or divided on both sides. So in this case, the 3 is negative. That 6, the fact that that number where that negative 6 is, does not matter that it is negative. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a second. I'm going to write that my answer is x is greater than negative 2. I'm going to give you a second. If you are still writing down that work, please pause this because I'm going to erase it because it's coming into my graph. All right, so by now you've written this. If not, I'm going to erase it in about 2 seconds, so pause it. All right, so we got that x is greater than negative 2. So we have negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 1, 0, 1. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we need to do is first, when we're graphing, decide if we have an open or a closed circle. So we know that it's an open circle if we're not including the number and closed if we are. So we don't have an or equal sign, so we're not including the number. So we're going to have an open circle at negative 2. And then my second question to ask when graphing, are we going to shade to the right or are we going to shade to the left? So I have that x is all the numbers greater than negative 2, and I know that my numbers greater are going to be to the right. And if I wanted to test that, I could plug in 0, and I know 0 is bigger than negative 2, so I did it right. And if I wanted to plug one in from the other direction, I know negative 4 is not bigger than negative 2 because I'd rather not lose $4 if I only had to lose 2, if I could only lose 2 instead. Because, you know, that was one of the other issues I saw was you would get mixed up with your negatives. Remember that your positives and your negatives work opposite when you're thinking about bigger or smaller. So 4 is bigger than 2 when you're talking about positives, but negatives, negative 2 is bigger than negative 4. So your graph would look like this. All right, so now I want you to go ahead. I want you to pause this, and I want you to do 2. Have you gone ahead and paused this? You haven't? Then pause it and do 2. All right, so by now you've already paused this, worked through 2, and you've unpaused it because you're ready to go through it. If not, you should do it now before I start. All right, so we know our first step is to distribute. So negative 2 times the a is negative 2a. I'm going to go ahead and say plus a negative. So negative 2 times negative 7 plus negative 2 times negative 7 is positive 14. So negative 2a plus 14 minus 3a is greater than or equal to negative 31. All right, so then our second step in that simplification process, we're going to go ahead and combine our like terms. Remember, we're treating the left side like its own expression, so we're only combining like terms on the same side or in that same expression. So I have a negative 2a and a negative 3a. So when I combine those, I'm going to get a negative 5a because 2 negatives is going to make it bigger negative. So negative 5a plus 14, and then greater than or equal to negative 31, because all we've done is combined our a's. Okay, now I have a regular 2-step inequality, so I can go ahead and get rid of my addition first before my multiplication. So this cancels, and we have negative 5a is greater than or equal to negative 45, because this is plus a negative, and 2 negatives added together is going to make a bigger negative. All right, so then I want to go ahead and get rid of multiplication and divide both sides by -5. I'm going to go ahead and have you star this as well so you can see the difference. This is being a negative being divided on both sides. Because of that, we flip our inequality. So greater than or equal to becomes less than or equal to. This cancels, and we have A, and then -45 divided by -5 is 9. So I'm going to give you a second to go ahead and get that copied, because again, I'm going to write my answer up here. Copy that work. Make sure in your notes you are including that work. And I'm going to help you graph it now. All right. So first question, is it an open or a closed circle? We are including 9. So 9, 10, 11, 8, 7, 6, 12. All right, so a closed circle at 9. And then our second question is, are we shading left or right? Well, I want all of the numbers smaller than 9. So 8, 7, and 6, all of those numbers are going to be smaller than 9. All right. I want you to go ahead and turn the page to the back if you're on the sheet. If not, just follow along with me. I'm going to go ahead and do 7. So our first step is to do my distribution. So -2 times +2m is going to be -4m. -2 times +9 is going to give me a -18. And then it's going to be greater than 2. Distribute the 2. 2 times 5 is 10. Minus 2 times 4m is 8m. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and move our variables from one side to the other. So I'm going to go ahead and add 8m to both sides. So it cancels on my right side, and then I'm left with a positive 4m on my left side, because 8 minus 4 is 4, and positive 8 is bigger than -4. So positive 4m plus -18 is greater than 10. So we're going to subtract a negative, because the opposite of addition is subtraction, but I'm subtracting what's there. So minus a -18, which is just plus positive 18, so 0, because positive and -18 cancel out, so we know we did that right, plus 18. So then I have 4m left on that left side is greater than 10 plus 18 is 28. And then we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 4 to get rid of multiplication. And m is greater than 28 divided by 4 is 7. All right. And then I want you now to go ahead. Well, no, let me graph it for you first. Pause this. M is greater than 7. Pause this. Fill out the notes if you didn't finish it, so I can graph this. All right. So now, first question, open or close circle. That's right. And I erased my 7. I'm going to rewrite it. It's going to be a 7. M is greater than 7. All right. So we are going to do an open circle at 7, because we're not including 7. That's our first question. And then I'm going to fill in my numbers around it. 9, 10, 5, 4. We want all the numbers bigger than 7, so we're going to shade to the right. All right, so now I want you to go ahead and pause this and work out 8. All right, so by now you've already paused this and worked out 8. So your first step is to do our distributing and combining all like terms. So I'm left with -9p plus 3 when I distribute is greater than 7p plus 51. And then I need to move my variables to one side or the other. So I am going to go ahead and add 9p to both sides. So then I am left with a 3 on the left side is less than or equal to 7 plus 9p is 16p plus 51. So then I want to get rid of my addition. So minus 51 minus 51. So we're going to have a negative 48. So negative 48 is less than or equal to 16p. Then we get rid of multiplication with division. And then p is greater than or equal to negative 48 divided by 16 is a negative 3. I did not flip my inequality because that 16 is the number being divided on both sides, and that is positive. So negative 3 less than or equal to p. And then if you wanted to make sure your variable is first, you could flip it and say p is greater than or equal to negative 3. So that when I graph it, we have negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 2, negative 1, 0. All right. So first step, open or close circle. Closed. And then are we shading to the left or to the right? We want all the numbers bigger than negative 3. So we are going to shade to the right. So I flipped it so you could see you can shade the direction that the arrow is pointing if the variable comes first. I would flip it if your answer doesn't end with the variable coming first, because a big issue I see is that you get negative 3 is less than p and you still shade to the left. But if negative 3 is less than your solution, that means any of these solutions need to be bigger than negative p, which is just its converse, which is why I flipped it before I graphed it. All right, so now I want you to look at the bottom. So this is our other thing. I'm going to show you 2 possible ways to solve this. Your first option is to test all your solutions. So I'm going to do negative 10, and then I'm going to show you the other way. So negative 10, plug it in for x's. So 5 times negative 10 minus 16 is less than negative 64 minus negative 10. All right, so 5 times negative 10 is negative 50 minus 60 is less than negative 6 minus a negative becomes plus a positive. So negative 6 and positive 10 is 4 plus a negative. So negative 64 is less than 4. So that's true. But do I really want to do that for every single number they have there? No, I don't. So what I would recommend doing on these ones is solving them. So I want you to pause this, and I want you to go ahead and solve this inequality, and then we will go through the process of determining whether or not it is true. All right, so did you solve it? Awesome. So our first step, there's no simplification, there's no distributing or combining like terms. So we would go ahead and move that x to the same side. So I'm going to add the x, but if you moved the 5x, you're going to get the same answer. So 5x minus 16 is less than negative 64. Then we're going to get rid of subtraction before multiplication. So plus 16 plus 16. So 5x is less than negative 48 because we're going to subtract and keep the bigger sign. And I see what I did wrong. X and 5x, 6x. So 6x is less than negative 48. We're going to go ahead and divide both sides by that, 6. And x is going to be all numbers less than negative 8. So I could go through and test every one, or I can determine that x is all the numbers less than -8. Did you get this as your solution? So now just test these values. -10 is less than -8. -9 is less than -8, because remember, negative numbers work opposite than positive numbers. Positive 10 is bigger than positive 9, but -10 and -9 are smaller than -8, because you're losing. Like if you thought in terms of money, spending $10, you're losing more than you would if you only spent $8. All right? Is -8 smaller than -8? No. If it said or equal to, that would be a solution, but these three are not, because if we were to draw out our number line, I have -6. I don't know why I started with -6. Let's see, I have 5 numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So -8, -7, -6, -9, -10, -11. All right. So x is less than -8. So we have a circle here, and all of these numbers less than -8. So if you graph it, you can see that the answer is -10 and -9, and not these ones. So if you want to go ahead and graph it, you can. If you can think about it being -10 and -9 being smaller, then you just have to graph it if it doesn't tell you to graph it. Either way. So jump to our objective. We can solve a multi-step equality. It is the same process as solving a multi-step equation. When and if to flip the inequality, if I multiply or divide both sides by a negative, I can graph my solution. Yep, first determine, is it open or closed? And then am I shading left or right? And then test a solution for a multi-step inequality. Solve that multi-step inequality. Use your knowledge to determine if they're bigger or smaller if you can. Otherwise, graph it and determine your solutions. Either way, if you're a visual or a auditory, you can see it. If you have to see it, draw it, a graph. Otherwise, you can determine whether or not they're true. Plug them in, say, yep, this one's smaller, or no, this one's not. So this one's the solution, but this one is not. All right, that's all I've got for you. Please come to our guided practice, especially if those ones you did on your own you didn't get right. If you don't see what you did wrong, definitely come to small group. If you feel like you've got it, you can go ahead and do the work on Schoology. Have a great day, guys. Bye.